Everybody, it's your boy Nye. I'm sitting here with Brock Pierce today, and we are at World CryptoCon in Las Vegas for Halloween. And I'm really stoked to be here. How you feeling, Brock?
I'm feeling grateful.
Cool.
You know, today is what? It's Bit Day. It's Bitcoin's birthday. This is the 10-year anniversary of the drop in the white paper, and you know, I can't think of a much better way to celebrate it than around a poker table with a bunch of you know, crypto legends and poker legends.
Exactly. How'd you doing there?
Made it into the 7th level, which is, you know, about 2/3 of the way through the tournament, I think.
Nice.
Just made, you know, one major mistake, and this is the problem with, you know, trying to have some dignity. I'm like, I can't get knocked out early. I can't get knocked out early, and that like caused me to just tone it down a little bit. There's a hand that I should have, like, you know, called and pushed with, and you know, I got too conservative. In a turbo type structure like this, it was good levels, but a turbo type structure, you gotta jam it, and that set me off.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you're here, man. I'm glad to be sitting here with you. And yeah, we're here for World CryptoCon. Gonna have a really cool event over the next couple days. What are you looking forward to, man? You speaking and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, always happy to speak, but that's not like the thing I look forward to. You know, the things that I enjoy most are the conversations I have with the people that are here. You know, it takes teamwork to make the dream work, and it's like trying to understand what other people are trying to do and figuring out how you can connect the dots and how, you know, the puzzle sort of connects.
Cool.
To you know, make big things happen that will make our world a better place.
Definitely. I know that's what we're all about, so I dig it. And yeah, I guess I'm just kind of more interested on what you're working on right now. You know, I've heard a couple things that you've got brewing and things like that, and it's different than what everybody else is doing. You know, you have a unique perspective on life. I really like that. Obviously, I don't know your full perspective, but from what I've observed, I've seen you have a unique perspective, and I hear you're working on some pretty cool stuff. Can you share anything with me, with the audience and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, the main thing right now is I moved down to Puerto Rico following the hurricane. So as everyone else is leaving, you know, or going in, you know, because I'm going, where can I go have the biggest positive impact in the world? And Puerto Rico, I think, has the potential to become the next Singapore. In the same way that Singapore is the hub and spoke kind of model of all of Southeast Asia, Puerto Rico has the potential to do the same thing for between North and South America. I call it that bridge between Latin America, that gateway. So why do people, you know, because Singapore doesn't have a big enough population to be a market that anyone wants to invest in. Puerto Rico has the same problem from a venture perspective, from a startup perspective. But what Singapore did is they said, we have a rule of law. And so everyone that was doing business in Southeast Asia would incorporate their company in Singapore. You know, investors would say, we'll only invest in those companies if you're, you know, headquartered in Singapore. I think the same thing could potentially be true for, call it, Latin America. You know, because Puerto Rico is the United States, so it's US law. That makes everyone very comfortable. It's got favorable tax status for setting up shop. And so if you're a Latin American company that wants to access the United States, I can't think of a better, you know, place to do it through. Miami had a little of this going on, but it has that same potential to play that role, to be that gateway. And the same thing is true if you're an American company and you want to access Latin America. You know, Puerto Rico seems like a very good space for it. You know, one of the things that most people don't know is that Puerto Ricans have more bachelor degrees per capita than any other part of the United States. Puerto Ricans are better educated. The University of Puerto Rico Mayagüez is the number 15 engineering school in the United States, and basically Facebook and Google and NASA camp out there all the time because there's no opportunity. So it's the best place to go recruit from because there are no jobs. And so everybody is, you know, they all just keep leaving to go move to San Francisco, to move to New York, go to wherever, you know, those jobs are, because there isn't any venture-backed deals down there. There aren't any angels, there aren't any mentors. And so you know, the skills that I specifically have are I can help in these areas. This is where I can be most effective. I can establish a venture fund. I can figure out the strategy to make things that are in Puerto Rico investable, to call it the venture model, which means it has to be scalable. And a market of 3 million people is not. But if Puerto Rico can become a hub to Latin America, if Puerto Rico can be a gateway to America, you know, all of a sudden that market starts to look very, very interesting. And, you know, as guys that are artists, at least in the things that we wear, another interesting or notable fact is that Puerto Rico has more artists per capita than any other place in the United States, almost the world as well. So you're dealing with really well-educated, really creative people, top engineering. You know, it's a place that can do so much. These are people that can do so much more for themselves, and the hurricane is not really the problem. You know, the hurricanes come, go, damage happens, you fix it, and most of it's recovered. The real issue is the lack of opportunity. It's the lack of jobs. It's what we call the diaspora, and that is that, you know, the people with the intellectual capital, the people with the human capital, the people with the spiritual capital, you know, the people that have the financial capital, all keep leaving. And so all the leaders are leaving, and all the young future leaders keep getting recruited away too. Long term, that is the thing that will be devastating, you know, to a place, and especially a place with so much potential. So that's kind of my main focus, which is very different than what has kind of historically been my day job. On the crypto end of the spectrum, you know, I helped set up the EOS Alliance, which is essentially the EOS Foundation. You know, you've got Block One, the company that created the open source software, released it, didn't launch it. Then you've got the block producers and the community that launched it. You know, the role of the EOS Alliance or the foundation is to not have any authority. It's a nonprofit, but solely to help facilitate conversation amongst the main constituents. Because where do you go get your information from? When you start thinking about referendums, when you start thinking about, because what EOS does from a governance perspective is so different than anything else we have. It's not, you know, code is law. It's got arbitration systems built into it. It's got governance. It's got a constitution. And so you start having to think about things that no one else in crypto really thinks about. And so how do you, in an unbiased as possible way, collect all that information and make sure that the community has that information so they can make informed decisions about, you know, what they want to do from a voting perspective, you know, how they want to, you know, use these new governance tools in this new world of liquid democracy that essentially has just emerged.
Interesting.
And then obviously, I do a lot of other things too. I mean, I'm not going to bore you with the whole thing, but, you know, I like to focus on those things because that's kind of my nonprofit work. Very interested in, you know, finding ways to help the Amazon and the importance of the carbon that it produces. I'm very interested in the ways that we can help support the waters of our world and the oceans. You know, spending a lot of time kind of thinking about, you know, things like the coral reefs.
Of course.
And where, you know, my whole attitude is that the world needs, you know, this group of game changers to truly change the game. And the way that we change the game is the game that most people play. I refer to as the game of compounding interest. You know, I'm going out there to make money and get more for myself and keep getting more for myself. I'm playing the game of self-interest. There's nothing wrong with that. To each their own. It's not a criticism, but you can play a different game. You can change the metrics by which you measure your own success, how you measure yourself. And so I'm playing the game of what I call compounding impact. You know, I measure my success by the amount of positive impact and the, you know, that's happening in the world around me, whether that be through individuals or specific causes that, you know, I end up or we end up, you know, supporting, because I think it's that time.
It's awesome. It's interesting. I mean, I always talk about we're all kind of playing a game, but nobody's really winning because nobody really understands the game that we're actually playing. So
we're all one.
And it's an interesting concept. To dive back into Puerto Rico a little bit, what are some specific things that you're either working on now or like some visions that you have for Puerto Rico that you want to be working on in the next 5-10 years?
Well, so the first thing that we've done is we put together an event series, a decentralized event series called Restart Week. We did the first one in San Juan, March of this year, in the north, the capital. This is where Christopher Columbus in 1492 first set up shop. So all of Europe's influence on all of the Americas began right there. That's ground zero for everything that happened with all the indigenous people and everything across this entire region of the world. That's ground zero. And so we did San Juan. This is not long after the hurricane. Things were not yet fully back up and fixed. But we brought about 3,000 people, game changers from all over the world down. We sold out all the flights, sold out all the hotels, including in the neighboring cities. And that was a very interesting activation. 3 major conferences, because it's a decentralized thing. If you want to come do an event, come do an event as part of it. But you had Coin Agenda, D10E, Blockchain Unbound, major concert with Akon and Wu-Tang and Busta Rhymes and like, I mean, just madness going on, plus 40 other events. So there was like 40, 50 events happening over the course of that, week. Just an incredible time to like connect on crypto things, but to also connect with an interesting group of people that are called to, that have a higher calling. For whatever reason, this Puerto Rican message just resonated with certain people, and they didn't even know why they were there. They just knew they needed to be in Puerto Rico for some reason. And then all the sort of local things there. Then we did our second event on the west coast of the island, which was Restart Week West, which was in Mayaguez, which is where you've got the 13,500 students, all the incredible engineers coming out of there, as well as Rincon, which is a little further north, which is like the most amazing surfing in all of like the East Coast. So, for anyone on the East Coast that likes to surf, like you kind of need to come down, check it out. And then we just finished yesterday, the last Restart Week South, which was down in Ponce, which is the second largest city. A lot of that was focused on things like energy and agriculture. And then we got our last event of the year. So we'll have done the north, the west, the south, the east, which is December 10th to the 14th, right after Art Basel. So Art Basel in Miami brings tons of people together December 6th to the 9th. And this is like, everybody, you're almost there. One short ride away. And so, want to like reach out to all the Art Basel people. This is, something that resonates with you. This might be a good time to come down, and then we'll go back to San Juan and do another major event in the spring, late March, early April. And so that's one piece of it. The other part is the philanthropic side, finding grassroots sort of charitable organizations that are out there doing kind of the really dirty work and making sure that they have resources to support that. And we're now identifying more and more organizations, kind of really small scale, guerrilla. We're not like trying to give money to the Red Cross, not to criticize them, but we're trying to find, the entrepreneurs of sorts that are just doing, truly charitable work. And so we're doing a much better job of that and continuing to scale those activities. And now the last part is the venture side. So it's basically the philanthropic work, the venture, creating the jobs, teaching Puerto Ricans that they can start companies, and then lastly is that sort of event series of activation that creates the space, to kind of everyone to connect, to understand the needs, the issues, to speak their minds, to connect with others, find the opportunities that, connect the dots.
Cool, I like it. And we won't dive too much into crypto, but I do want to know, like, do you see any projects out there right now that like super interest you, not just from like, oh, this is cool and could change different industries, but could apply to this mission and this kind of bigger vision that you're talking about?
I mean, of course. From a crypto perspective, I always like to make a point that we should all be chain agnostic. To be a maximalist of any particular coin is the equivalent of being a religious fundamentalist. And we've learned over the last few thousand years that the my chain is better than your chain sort of like mentality does not serve humanity. And so, if anyone makes the world a better place, we all win. You're not necessarily going to agree with everyone. You may not want to work with everyone, but we're all on the same mission in some way. But it's worth noting what's going on with EOS right now. You can build real dApps. It's like crazy. If you haven't played around with them, you should go do that. We've spent the last 10 years, getting ready. But, we now have fully functioning, really fast, scalable blockchains that are live, and there's going to be more soon. But we can now build real consumer dApps. This is the 1995 moment. This is like when the consumer internet was first born. Or this is like when the Apple iPhone and the App Store first came out. Like if you go into these EOS app stores and you just start watching the dApps popping up, I mean, it's like picking up an iPhone for the first time.
Interesting.
So yeah, if you haven't done that, that's worth looking at. And there are other chains that are going to be able to deliver similar things in the not too distant future. You know, it's not only an EOS thing, but EOS is there and it's working. I'm really excited about just tokenization of everything, which is really securitizing, you know, old world assets. You know, once we start securitizing, you know, like Tether basically did with real world currencies, and as governments start using this technology to issue their own currencies at their central bank level or however it is that they do it, you know, you've got currencies. I believe like we did with BCAP, tokenizing equities. You know, I think all the world's equities are going to eventually be tokenized. All the world's stock markets are going to run this way. All the world's debt markets, all the world's bond markets, as we start seeing the same thing with all the world's real estate. We're on the precipice of a quadrillion-dollar market emerging. I mean, it makes the internet small, and I say that with an entirely straight face. That is what we're talking about. You know, and those of us that understand this technology and how to use it are literally sitting in the position of the greatest opportunity that anyone has ever witnessed in the history of the world. The emergence of, you know, a quadrillion-dollar market change. I mean, it sounds silly when you say it.
I mean, it's definitely a possibility.
It is.
Yeah, no question.
No, as you just talk about securitization of real-world assets, you know, better efficiency. Take the stock markets, for example. The stock markets today are local by nature, geographically limited to some range, maybe the United States, but that's still limited.
Yeah, of course.
They operate from 9 to 5, you know, on weekdays. Mm-hmm. They run on really old, really slow, very expensive, insecure technology. Versus global markets that run 24/7 on the fastest, most efficient, secure technology the world's ever seen. If you want to take the other side of that argument, I mean, you can. And I'm not saying that the NASDAQs or the New York Stock Exchanges of the world are not going to be potential participants. Obviously, they're investing heavily in trying to be part of that evolution, you know, of this market. But the future is inevitable. You know, the who, the when, the how, maybe that can be debated, but I'll make a bet around the quadrillion-dollar market securitization of all the world's things over some time frame.
I like that. So I'm a big believer in something very similar. You know, I think this technology is the future, no question. Always talk about it like that. And I also see kind of where we are right now, and I see that we do have a lot of problems in the space, in the industry, as well as like with what's being created. And I kind of want to know what your thought process is on like where we are right now and how we can kind of bridge that gap to the vision of where I think a lot of us believe we are going.
Well, it's why we're here. This is the 1995 moment for us. In the same way, this was the beginning of the consumer internet. For the last 10 years, we've been talking a big game, and yes, some people have been making money, but most of the things that can be done to make the world a better place have largely been theoretical, because the bridges, the roads, the tunnels, the infrastructure wasn't there to do it. The infrastructure is there now. And so what we need to be doing now is actually building consumer dApps, building decentralized applications that start getting real numbers, that have 1 million users, that have 10 million users. You know, everything's been kind of happy talk to date.
100%.
It's time that we start delivering, you know, real big, you know, impactful things. And you can do that today. It's 100% possible. And you are going to watch it happen many times over the course of the next 12 months. So you've got that piece of it. And the other half is making sure that the other amazing things we can do with the technology, even in its current state, is possible. You know, you've got billions of people that don't have access to financial services or limited access to financial services, 2/3 of the world's population. You know, in this day and age, if you were recreating Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, a consistent internet connection, a mobile phone, and financial services, you know, would be core to having the ability to live a prosperous life. Like it's fundamental at this point. It's like almost a basic human right. But 66% of the planet doesn't have those three things. You know, we're talking about Latin America, we're talking about Africa, we're talking about Southeast Asia. You know, let's go start literally democratizing the global financial system in the way we talk about, and so that we can create opportunity for these billions of people that have never had it before, because they've never had the basic tools that have given them the possibility to, you know, live a prosperous life any way other than by winning the equivalent of the lottery. You know, time to equip everyone. You know, let's make financial services ubiquitous. You know, and these are things we can do today, and you're seeing it in the Philippines. 5% of the population of the Philippines are now using blockchain wallets for all financial services and things of that nature. That number could very quickly go to 25. You know, so, you know, we need to start seeing that, because that's where the moral high ground lies. You know, the Lambos and, you know, people making a bunch of money clearly, you know, helps this movement appeal to the greedy, but it's not, you know, how we want to be portrayed.
Of course.
It's not how we should be portrayed, because when you actually dig in deep enough, you know, greed brings people into this industry, but once they realize what's here and what's happening, and they almost leave with religion. You know, greed gets them in the door, and then all of a sudden they go, wow, we can make the world a better place. And everyone has that eureka moment at some point as they go down this rabbit hole. But that economic incentive is what's helped drive so much of this.
Totally. It's kind of like a maturity of the space and the people in the space in a little bit, in multiple ways. I kind of see it happening in multiple different facets. So yeah. I think the bear market's helping a lot with that as well.
Oh, I love the bear markets, because it's like it cleanses the ecosystem. Mm-hmm. You know, every time we get a bull market, the market becomes, you know, irrational. A lot of bad actors start showing up that, you know, are there just to try and make a quick buck, and the minute they see that things are getting difficult, they all disappear again. You know, it's one of those things you got to make it through the winters, and then you remember everybody that's like kind of been there through the difficult times, not just the good times.
Exactly.
And you're like, this is the real tribe.
Yep. Cool, man. Well, I'm glad we got to sit down. I'm glad we got to chat a little bit about kind of the deeper in-depth of the vision of what you're doing and stuff like that. Really stoked on Puerto Rico, man.
Yeah, come on down.
I would love to come down. That'd be a blessing. That'd be great. Yeah. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for joining me, man. My man Brock Pierce right here. It's your boy Shil Nye, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening.